It was one of those nights that seemed endless, the kind of night where exhaustion didn't just weigh on the body but seeped deep into the soul. Rain lashed against the window, wind howled through the cracks of the old apartment, and inside, a young mother sat trembling on the edge of her bed, clutching her wailing baby in her arms. She had rocked, she had walked, she had hummed lullabies until her throat ached, but nothing soothed the child. Her tears mingled with the baby's cries until the whole room seemed soaked in despair. She was alone, utterly and completely, with no one to lean on and no strength left to keep going. In that fragile, breaking moment, she whispered into the night, "I can't do this anymore." And then, just when her world seemed ready to collapse, a knock echoed at her door. Sparkles, before we go deeper into this story, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the beauty of strangers who change lives in unexpected ways, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Tales. Your support helps us spread more stories of hope and love to the world. The woman's name was Isabella, and life had not been kind to her. At 26, she was already carrying burdens that would break someone twice her age. Once, not too long ago, she had been filled with hope, newly married, imagining a happy home where laughter and little footsteps filled the halls. But life, as it often does, twisted her dreams. Her husband, burdened by financial failures and his own demons, walked out before their daughter was even born. Since then, Isabella's nights had been long, her days heavy, and her heart constantly torn between fear and love. Fear of failing as a mother, love for the tiny human who needed her more than anyone else in the world. Her daughter, Aurora, was beautiful, soft curls framing a round face, eyes that sparkled even through tears. But she was also colicky, restless, unable to sleep for more than a few minutes at a time. Isabella's body had grown weaker, her spirit frayed from endless sleepless nights. Friends who had once promised to stand by her had drifted away, too busy with their own lives. Even family had grown distant, judgmental whispers replacing words of comfort. All she had was the baby, and some nights, it felt like even love wasn't enough. On this particular night, as she sat broken, the knock at her door startled her. She froze, unsure if she had imagined it. Another knock followed, gentle but firm, as if someone knew she needed them. Hesitantly, with her baby still in her arms, she opened the door. Standing there was a man she had never seen before, a stranger in every sense. He was tall, with kind eyes and a tiredness of his own etched into his face. He held an umbrella dripping with rainwater, and his coat looked soaked from the storm. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Isabella felt fear prickle her skin. She was alone, and this was a stranger. But then he spoke softly, his voice carrying warmth like a blanket. "I'm sorry to disturb you. I heard the baby crying. I live just down the hall. Is everything all right?" Her throat tightened, and for the first time in months, she felt the sting of someone truly noticing her pain. She wanted to say she was fine, to shut the door, to retreat into her bubble of loneliness. But her lips betrayed her and whispered the truth, "I can't get her to sleep." The man's eyes softened. He slowly extended his hands, not pushing, just offering. "May I try?" he asked. Every instinct in Isabella told her to guard her child, to never trust a stranger. Yet something in his demeanor, a quiet gentleness, an unspoken understanding, made her pause. Almost against her will, she placed Aurora into his arms. And to her utter astonishment, within minutes, the baby's cries began to soften. The man gently rocked her, humming an old lullaby that Isabella didn't recognize. The storm outside still raged, but inside, peace slowly descended. Aurora's breathing evened out, her tiny hand resting against the stranger's chest, and before long, she was asleep. Isabella stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. She hadn't seen her daughter sleep so peacefully in weeks. Something inside her cracked wide open, not just relief, but something deeper, something long buried under the weight of exhaustion and heartache. The man introduced himself as Ethan. He was a widower, he explained softly, his wife having passed away 2 years ago. They had never had children, though they had wanted them dearly. Since her passing, he had lived quietly, going through life's motions, working, eating, sleeping, but never truly living. He said he hadn't sung that lullaby since the nights he used to sing it with his wife, imagining a baby they would one day hold. As he spoke, Isabella saw the grief etched into his features, but also the tenderness that remained, like a candle refusing to go out. From that night on, Ethan became more than a neighbor. Whenever Isabella struggled, he would knock softly on her door, offering to hold the baby, to make her a cup of tea, or simply to sit in silence with her. At first, she resisted, pride telling her she had to do everything alone. But gradually, she let him in. He never judged her, never made her feel weak. Instead, he reminded her that even in brokenness, there was strength. The days turned into weeks, and Isabella began to change. Her laughter, once forgotten, slowly returned. Aurora grew calmer, as if she too sensed the newfound peace in their small home. Ethan often visited, bringing little things, a toy for Aurora, fresh groceries, a repaired chair. But more than things, he brought presents. And presence was what Isabella had needed most. Still, shadows lingered in her heart. Could she trust him? Could she allow herself to hope again? Every time she saw Aurora sleeping in his arms, every time she caught herself smiling at something he said, fear crept in. What if he left, like everyone else had? What if this fragile happiness shattered? One evening, the three of them sat together on the balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in gold and crimson. Aurora babbled in Ethan's lap, her tiny hands reaching for his face. Isabella watched them, her heart swelling with a mix of love and fear. She realized she wasn't just grateful anymore, she was falling. Falling for the stranger who had walked into her storm and brought calm. Falling for the man who had reminded her that she was still capable of love. And yet, love terrified her. But Ethan, with his patient kindness, never rushed her. He seemed to understand that healing had its own pace. Sometimes, he would tell her stories of his wife, of how love never truly dies, it just changes form. Sometimes, he would listen as she poured out her struggles, her doubts, her guilt for not being enough as a mother. And always, he would remind her, gently, unwaveringly, that she was more than enough. The turning point came on another stormy night. The power had gone out, and the apartment was cloaked in darkness. Aurora woke crying, frightened by the thunder. Isabella tried to calm her, but her own fear trembled in her chest. Ethan lit a candle, his face glowing in the soft flame. He took Aurora into his arms, holding her close, and whispered, "You're safe. I'm here." Isabella watched as her daughter instantly relaxed, soothed by the very presence that had once been a stranger's. And in that moment, she knew. She knew that love had returned to her life, not in the way she had expected, not through grand gestures or promises, but through the simple, quiet kindness of someone who chose to stay. Life didn't become perfect overnight. There were still struggles, still bills to pay, still nights when exhaustion weighed heavy. But now, there was also laughter echoing through the rooms, dinners shared at a small table, bedtime stories told in soft voices. There was companionship, trust, and the slow but steady blooming of love that neither Isabella nor Ethan had thought they would ever feel again. And perhaps most beautifully, there was a little girl who would grow up knowing not just the strength of her mother, but the warmth of a man who had once been a stranger but had become family. Redheart, if this story has touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Tales. Your engagement helps us bring more heartwarming stories into the world and remind everyone that love and kindness still exist. Before we end, I'd love for you to do something special. Comment below with the words, "Kindness awakens love," if you believe that even strangers can change the course of our lives forever. Because sometimes, all it takes is one gentle soul, one unexpected moment, one act of kindness to awaken a love we thought was lost forever. And for Isabella, that act came on a stormy night when a stranger rocked her baby to sleep, and awakened her heart to love again.